Coming up on this episode of DL Weekly, Oogie Boogie Bash dining packages have dropped. Reservations are now open for more dining locations.
A Main Street staple is finally set to return. We talked with Chris from DisneyChris.com about Disneyland music and more. DL Weekly starts now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome aboard the DL Weekly podcast. Please lower your head and watch your step while boarding. If this is your first time listening, we hope you'll check out our website at DLWeekly.net. If you have more time to spend, becoming an official weekly tier at DLWeekly.net/support is an especially good value. Thanks for traveling with us today, and we hope you have a happy and memorable listen to this week's episode.
Hello and welcome to this episode of DL Weekly for the week of August 11th, 2021. I'm Teresa Urban.
And I'm Tig Bushman. We'd like to send a shout out and a big thank you to Pooja S. and Marty I. for becoming supporters of the show. This support, of course, helps make DL Weekly possible. The supporter Discord chat has been a great source of Disney magic from our supporters, like theme topic days. We have a book club going in there now. Of course, we had quite a bit of conversation about the Magic Key program when that launched last week, so always some fun stuff going on there. If you'd like to become a weekly tier yourself and have some more Disney magic in your day, head on over to dlweekly.net/support to sign up.
Now let's get to the news. For guests attending the Oogie Boogie Bash this year, Disney has announced 2 dining packages for the event. First, the Wine Country Trattoria Oogie Boogie Bash Parade Dining, which includes a 3-course meal and reserved seating for the Frightfully Fun Parade. The kids' meal also includes an Oogie Boogie popcorn bucket. The other option is for the Sonoma Terrace Oogie Boogie Bash Dessert Party. A selection of desserts and beverages is provided and takes place at 7 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. on party nights. Reservations begin for the dessert party on August 11th, with reservations for the dinner package needing to be booked as a dinner reservation and then upgraded in person when checking in.
I thought that was weird.
They did that last year. However, so I've got a couple
last
of
time,
things.
you mean?
Yeah. 2020 apparently
Yes.
just didn't happen in my Disney brain because Disneyland was not really
I'm
going.
with you.
So I'll let you talk about this first because I have things.
You
I
have
thoughts.
opinions?
I do.
So I thought that this, again, like Teresa said, I thought this was weird because you basically just make a regular reservation at the Wine Country Trattoria, and then when you show up, you're like, hey, I've got my ticket for the party. Can you upgrade me to this thing? Which just seems strange to me. For me...
They kind of did that for 2019.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't really supposed to be that way.
Gotcha.
But something didn't work in the system that it...
Well, they've had 2 years.
I know. Something didn't work that it didn't actually, differentiate the 2 types of reservations. So you could be eating at the Wine Country Trattoria just normal, or you could be doing the dining package.
Gotcha.
Whereas, I don't know. I guess Blue Bayou, do they do the Fantasmic dining packages? Yeah, they go at the same time as regular dining.
I don't know what their problem
I don't
is.
know what's going on. But
The Sonoma Terrace dessert party sounds good, though, because when World of Color was operating, and we were there before, not Oogie Boogie times, the dessert party looked really good. And they look like, for World of Color, they look like they had a wonderful location to sit and watch.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's the case, because what you want to talk about, I think, a little bit, is the parade viewing.
Yeah, so I did do the Wine Country Trattoria Oogie Boogie dining package when I went to Oogie Boogie Bash in 2019.
Before you get into the parade viewing, talk about the food.
Oh, I was going to.
Okay, good, because I don't know anything about the food.
Yeah, so the food was really, really good. Pricing was similar to what you would pay if you're going to the Fantasmic dining package at Blue Bayou.
Mm-hmm.
We had, what was it? There was an entree, there was some sort of starter. I think we upgraded and got caprese maybe for the table to share. I got some sort of salad for my starter. It was a salad or a soup to choose from. I ended up getting a steak. Oh, it was really good. Super good steak, mashed potatoes, veggies. And then they had that super fun Oogie Boogie dessert that had that syringe that had red gel in it. Super cute, super fun. Everything delicious. The portions, very generous in my opinion. The only thing that fell short for me with the dining package was the parade viewing area. It was kind of tucked, where the grapevines are, behind where the cellars, the blue cellar thing is.
The blue sky cellar?
Yeah. You're kind of tucked behind, we were kind of tucked behind the blue sky cellar, and it was like we were having to peer around a corner to watch the parade. It just wasn't, ideal parade viewing. And the other thing too is the whole reason we wanted to do this was because, right, you think in your mind how difficult it is to get seating for a Disney parade, because typically, right, it's like middle of the day kind of thing, or it's nighttime, and you're having to try and find a spot with all of the other park goers. Well, this parade is the same length as a normal Disney parade. It's the same exact parade route. However, you have a fraction of the guests that are all trying to find a spot. So it's not hard to find a spot on your own. In fact, my parents weren't able to join us for the actual dining reservations because their flight got in later. So they were just going to go watch the parade on their own. Well, they ended up being able to watch the parade directly across from the viewing area. They had a much better view than we did. And actually, I later watched the Fresh Baked video. They must have been standing right next to David and Liz, because I was in the front. You could see me in the background of the Fresh Baked video because they were basically right across from us. So I think they had a much better spot than we did. So yes, I was really let down with the place that they chose for where the parade viewing area was.
So which one of these things are you most interested in?
So I would be more interested in the dessert package, because I bet that probably has parade viewing from up on the Sonoma Terrace. So you're like elevated and watching it. So that could be kind of cool. But I really did like the food. I really did like the food that they had for the dining package, though. So I'd do the dining package, watch and see what others say about where maybe they've moved the parade viewing area, because they probably got some complaints on that. So if it's in a different area, I'd sit and watch the parade in the viewing area. But if it's the same spot, I'd pass and I'd go find my own.
We'll have to look at reviews, because we're not there one of the first ones.
That's one of the perks, is going after.
Everybody figures out everything.
Not being the first ones to go, so everyone else can figure out.
What was the price? You said it was priced like the Phantasm.
I want to say it was between like 70-ish dollars, 70, 75.
Cool. Well, Trader Sam's has been so busy since, forever. And starting August 11th, guests can now reserve a spot prior to dining at the popular location. The reservations begin on August 15th, but guests can start reserving times on the 11th. Reservations will be open for lunch and dinner and are expected to go fast.
I have mixed feelings about this. I understand why they're doing this, because I feel like they need to maybe have a little bit more control over it, but I feel like that kind of takes away some of the charm that Trader Sam's was, to now have to have a coveted dining reservations. Trader Sam's, for those of you that have or have not been, it's not that big of a space. No. So you really can't have too many parties or people in there at a time. So I get why Disney's thinking, we should probably have reservations, because, whatever. But I'm not a big fan on that. I feel like especially with Tangaroa Terrace right there, and having that big, much bigger, open dining outdoor area, there's, plenty of places. Maybe you can't sit right at the bar, but I think that's what made it so cool, was the timing of it and just kind of it being more casual. I guess I don't like it being so strict now with having a reservation. It'll be interesting to see if these are temporary or if they're here to stay.
Sure. I like the idea of reservations. The concept of a reservation is nice, because if you plan ahead and stuff, you don't have to wait, blah, blah, blah. When we were there, we didn't do Trader Sam's, we did Tangaroa Terrace, but we walked up and got on the wait list. We could have gotten on the wait list for Trader Sam's as well, pick one or the other. The amount of time that they said it was going to be before we could get seated was a lot short, a lot longer than what it ended up being. So I like the fact that I like the spontaneity of being able to go up and get something when you happen to think about it, not have to plan 60 days in advance, because these things are going to go crazy fast. So for me, one of the things I liked about Disneyland as opposed to Disney World was there aren't as many things that you need to plan ahead for and get reservations for. And now we're going to that. And actually, I think we talked about this. If we didn't talk about it on the episode, I've definitely talked about it with you, I think, which is I just don't like having to have so many things planned in a day, because then you're kind of beholden to, you have to be at this place at this time and that's it. And I don't like that for me in the parks. I would much rather let the Disney winds take me, and I feel like more and more we're getting less of that.
Yeah, nope, that's very true. Well, some other food updates from the resort, including, of course, the reservations at Trader Sam's that we just spoke about, is the Disney Princess Breakfast Adventures at Napa Rose and the return of the Carnation Cafe. The Carnation Cafe will be open to serve guests again on September 16th. The Disney Princess Breakfast Adventures at Napa Rose begin on August 26th with reservations opening on August 11th. The adventure will feature Disney princesses greeting guests on a private patio for a photo op, a special keepsake, and a menu with breakfast and lunch offerings. Goofy's Kitchen will also return on Friday, August 18th, but without characters for the time being. The Plaza Inn will be hosting Minnie and Friends Breakfast in the Park buffet starting August 12th. For a complete list of all the dining open at the resort and to book your visits to these locations, remember to visit the link in our show notes.
So, again, the Disney Princess things at the Napa Rose, Goofy's Kitchen, the Plaza Inn all require reservations. They don't require, but they're heavily doing reservations. Again, so that's kind of unfortunate. I kind of get it.
I understand for character breakfast.
Sure. Well, I don't mind so much like breakfast reservations because that's like the beginning of your day. So you just know you start there and then you can go, whatever. I'm really excited that the Carnation Cafe is reopening. You're excited because we'll be there after that. So we'll actually be able to do something at Carnation Cafe.
I have not tried their fried pickles, and I know you want to try like a bowl of Walt's chili.
I mean, I've had a bowl of Walt's chili, but not there.
Yeah.
So, I'll probably do that. I really like Carnation for breakfast.
Oh, yeah, you do.
They have good breakfast there as well. So, plus it's nice. Like, you get in on Main Street, you go there and check in, you do breakfast, you get to people watch everybody kind of stroll by. Like, it's kind of nice if that's going to be like your first thing in the morning or whatever.
It is a nice location, I'll agree.
So maybe we just figured it out right there. I'll go stand over by the thing and get us a reservation for Carnation Cafe for breakfast.
Coffee.
You go get your coffee, and then we'll have breakfast and then start our day.
I'm still disappointed that I was the first person in line and the first person to order coffee, and I did not.
And it was still after 8.
And I didn't get a button.
Oh, well, that too.
Because, like, if you get the first churro of the day or the first Dole Whip, you get a button.
I don't get the feeling that Starbucks coffee is one of the things that people are like, oh, I want to be the first to get that for the day.
I felt pretty
it's not
accomplished.
A staple.
I felt pretty proud of myself.
Well, you were a little frustrated because they didn't open until 8.
No, I know. I thought that they would open, like, at 7:30.
Yeah.
And they should have. Yeah, they should have. But, yeah, they didn't open until rope drop, which was...
I know a lot of families are very excited, too, that the Plaza Inn with character dining will be back as well.
Yes.
So, because that's been kind of a big deal for a long time.
I've never been, but I've heard good things about Goofy's Kitchen. Even, like, listeners that don't have kids and, like, aren't there necessarily for the character breakfast part of it or the character meet and greet part of it say that it's good and that it's fun. So, it's nice to see these things returning. And the other cool thing, too, is we have, like, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm gonna just ballpark and say there's like less than a handful of restaurants in the resort that aren't open yet. So it's pretty amazing how many things are reopened and how quickly the turnaround was. It felt like we went from like no options to basically all of the options in a relatively quick time.
Sure. We might just be getting to the middle of August, but October 31st is already on the minds of a lot of folks already. Stores around the Disneyland Resort have already started stocking new Halloween merchandise. From tees to ears to hats and more, there is something for everyone. Some standout items include a Haunted Mansion Madame Leota necklace or earrings, a pair of Hitchhiking Ghost socks, and a Haunted Mansion wallpaper folding hand fan.
We saw the Hitchhiking Ghost socks when we were there in July. They were really fun. And the thing that I like about them, sometimes, right, socks are fun. Who doesn't like fun socks? But some of the Disney socks are this weird, like, it's just printed on the sock material. And so then when you stretch it, the image gets really weird and really distorted. Well, the new Haunted Mansion socks that we saw are actually like the correct threads. So when they stretch, it still looks like the photo. These other ones I'm talking about, they stretch and you can like see the white.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I'm glad that they're a higher quality sock. I am very excited. You have it up on your screen. I'm very excited. The new Haunted Mansion ears that they teased a couple months ago are now out and available in the parks. They're a kind of a unisex band style. It's just ears, and instead of having a bow, it's got one of the gargoyles in the middle. It says 999 happy haunts on one side, and then it's got some lesser I'm going to say they're a little bit lesser known characters because you've got, of course, the hitchhiking ghost, Madame Leota, but you also have Constance, the bride, the groundskeeper and his dog. So it's fun that it's not, I don't know, just different characters. There's so many characters that live inside of the Haunted Mansion.
This is one of the chicks from the stretching room, isn't it?
Yep, that's one of the, I don't remember her name now.
Of course
Some people think it's Constance, like...
Later on.
Yeah, later on. But I don't... Yeah, there's...
What do you think of this necklace? I thought it was really neat looking. It feels very costume jewelry-like, but I thought it was kind of neat.
It's a statement, I will say that. I like the different elements of it. Is it something that I would wear? Probably not. But I could see some people rocking this for sure.
These earrings are also pretty cool.
The earrings are pretty neat as well.
Yeah, I was just looking through some of these
I
things.
laughed so hard, and I know you did too, with some of the pet costumes that they have. So I think this one right here is my favorite. It's Abu riding the magic carpet, and the magic carpet is then like you strap it to your dog, so your dog's the magic carpet. You've got Flounder. You've got Sven.
I liked the one that was Winifred Sanderson, and I sent it into the chat, and Teresa said, well, she would never get a wig on any of her dogs.
I don't know what dog would wear a wig.
Jackie would wear a wig.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Mostly because she's too old to take it off. Anyway.
Mickey and Minnie have come to the resort in a new way. Strollers at the resort now feature the classic couple along with their classic red and black color scheme. The old design was black and blue, so this is a pretty fun upgrade. The sunshades featuring Mickey and Minnie on either side of the seat. The wheels are black and yellow to complete the look. For guests needing to rent one, they are $18 a day for the single stroller and $36 for the double stroller.
So...
These are so cute.
I don't see a lot of these anymore in the parks. I feel like I used to see people renting the strollers all the time, but I think now at $18 a day, I feel like people are just buying or bringing their own strollers instead of renting.
Yeah.
But I saw this online the other day. When we were there, I saw the black and blue version, and I was like, oh, those look different than the strollers used to look. The new one, same design, but they're red, black, and they've got and yellow, and they've got Mickey and Minnie, so it's nice.
Like the stroller itself is like the same size, same seat design.
Yeah.
But it's, the like theming of the stroller itself. It is
super cute.
Super cute, super fun. Why did they not do something like this like a while ago? Why did they not like Disneyfy the strollers? Because before it was just like plain blue, plain black, very boring.
Mm-hmm. Now I just got to see if they're ever going to update the electronic convenience vehicles to be character.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I hope more people use these because they are very cute. And people must because they have so many of them. Mm-hmm. Maybe now that they're red and black, we'll be able to see them easier in the crowd, so we'll be able to figure that out. Well, just a quick reminder to anyone who will be visiting Disneyland in the next few weeks, the Haunted Mansion is scheduled to be down for the transition to Haunted Mansion Holiday from August 16th to September 2nd. This will be the 20th anniversary of the holiday overlay and will feature nods to each of the 20 years in the gingerbread house that's going to be in the ballroom scene this year.
I am so excited to go see this in person. And the other exciting thing, too, is they're going to have merch because it is the 20th anniversary of Haunted Mansion Holiday. And the merch, I want to say, goes on sale September 27th. We'll double check that and for sure get the correct date.
August or September?
September.
So like the day after we get there? Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Are you going to need a budget?
I don't need a budget.
You're not just going to buy all of it?
I won't. First of all, there's not like a zillion. You can't go over budget because there's only maybe 5 things. But still, I think it's so fun that they're doing something special and extra for Haunted Mansion Holidays 20th anniversary. I'm really curious to see the gingerbread house in person. Mm-hmm. I like the concept art. I like the idea of having different like nods to each of the different gingerbread houses throughout the years. I'm just hoping that it'll be easy to spot them in person. We might have to go through with like a printout of it in like a map so we can like know.
They have a map.
I know.
Ooh, the shirt's kind of cool.
September 27th. Good job, Teresa.
Well, of course you're going to remember this. Are you patting yourself on the back?
I did.
Oh, my goodness. This pin, okay. Okay, here's a problem. I already found a pin that I want.
I think you need the martini shaker.
That pin looks amazing. I don't need the martini shaker. Or they're bringing back the popcorn bucket, too? Or the sipper?
He was back earlier in the year.
I like that.
I think he was there when we were there. You could buy the Jack Sipper when we were there.
This pin.
I know.
I'm buying this pin.
Is it a giant one?
I think it's a giant one.
I have mixed feelings on the giant pins. Another quick note to guests going to the park soon, Mickey's Mix Magic, the fireworks show that is currently shown at Disneyland, has moved from 9 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And starting August 30th, the fireworks portion of the show will be on weekends only with projections only on the weekdays. You know, I don't know if I'd be so sad about just projections on this one because it's the music for me is what made this one so fun.
Fireworks, Teresa. It's called a fireworks show.
I know. But, like, I think it'd still be entertaining with the projections. And
it wouldn't be bad, but I still want fireworks.
I'm thinking of, like, I'm trying to think of other fireworks shows that if you took the fireworks out, could it stand on its own?
Do you also know what I'm really excited for? It won't matter because when we're there, it's going to be the Oogie Boogie Bash.
It's going to be Halloween screams.
Yes, and I've never seen that in person. But it looks amazing. Because don't they have Zero come down from the Matterhorn?
They have Zero come down from the Matterhorn. They have a big, like, inflatable
Jack that comes out of the castle, right?
Oh, it's so cool. We're going to have to try and see. Somehow, I think it was the last night that I was there, we just happened upon and got to sit right in front of the castle. Like, with a totally, like, right there, totally unobstructed view, except for the couple that was standing in front of us. Everyone else was. It was kind of like watching it at on Small World, but on the castle, like sitting right there.
So do they do something on It's a Small World for this one, or is it just a castle one?
Yeah, I don't know. I only watched it from like Main Street and then right in front of the castle.
Do you know what I hope they do, but they won't this year? But I hope they do in the future. I hope they bring the the Sanderson sisters show that they have at Disney World to Disneyland because that was amazing.
That is a cool one. They also, I don't, did this replace the Sanderson sisters? But I've also seen that they have a show with this like giant Jack Skellington puppet thing.
Oh, I have not seen that.
Yeah, it looks super cool.
Well, and everybody is laughing because online, starting I think next week, the Halloween parties for Disney World. So
very early.
Last night, because one of the people we follow, the Disneyland Insiders, are in Disney World right now, and last night they put up all of the pumpkin decorations on Main Street. So it is, as we record this, it is August 10th, and there's already Halloween stuff up in Disney World. But Disney World, their Halloween bashes they start crazy early and they always sell out. So maybe the Oogie Boogie Bash will get like that at some point.
Maybe.
With the return of the popular bread bowls in Disney California Adventure, Disney has posted a TikTok video of how they're made. There are a few steps, and watching the cast members make these bowls of awesomeness so fast is amazing to watch. To see this for yourself, check out the link in our show notes at DLWeekly.net.
I thought this was a fun little thing, and what a great, I don't know, what a great simple thing to do to, celebrate the return of the bread bowls.
I watched it a couple times, and the cast member that scores the top of it, she is fast. She was like, boop, 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 boop.
It's one of those things you don't really think about until you see somebody doing the process. But it's just well, of course she'd have to be crazy fast because you're making how many at a time, and oh man, and then it just makes me appreciate things like the Mickey sourdough bread things that they make, and they have I've seen Mater and I've seen other character bread loaves and whatever. It's just wow, and they have to make how many of those? It's just mind-boggling.
It reminds me of watching the candy makers make things because they're tiny little works of art, but they're super mass produced and they all look almost identical.
I know.
And it's how do you do this?
It's impressive. It's very impressive.
I can't even make one thing at home look good, let alone an assembly line of these things.
Yeah, it's a crazy skill, that's for sure. Lots of practice.
Mm-hmm.
The Wonderground Gallery in downtown Disney has reopened after a brief refurbishment. Don't feel bad if you didn't know that they were closed for refurbishment, because we honestly didn't either. But none of the physical aspects of the store were really changed. Most of the items available for sale were replaced and are fresh. The other thing I noticed, though, is I feel like they did something to when you first walk in the back, the big main back wall, looks like it got a refresh, and they have different ways to display things.
Yeah.
That wall looked like it had work done. The rest of it looked about the same.
Yeah. Well, before I read it, I was literally just looking at the pictures, and I was like racking my brain trying to figure out what's different. What did they change?
Yeah.
Because I worked in retail. You worked in retail. I'm used to merchandise moving around, so that's not what I was focused on. I was like, is there a wall here that wasn't here before? Like, I don't understand what they did because they kept calling it a refurbishment. But really, it was just like they moved some merchandise around.
Well, like I said, that one wall, the fixtures, they looked like they updated like the fixtures on it and have like different ways to display merch on
But I still wouldn't call that a refurbishment.
No. It's like the Disney
I suppose
thing, right? Whenever you plus anything, it's a refurbishment.
I suppose. The Orange County Register reported this week that Disneyland has 19,000 cast members working at the resort and is continuing to rehire furloughed and laid off cast members. This only represents about 3/5 of the total workforce pre-pandemic. Much of the cast that works third shift are still on furlough, with the overnight duties falling to day shift cast members.
You know, it's really crazy to think, because we were just talking about this when we were going over restaurants earlier in the show, that basically all of the restaurants are back and they're open. When we were there in July, it didn't feel, how do I want to say this? It didn't feel like reduced capacity too much for us. All attractions were open. There were crowds. You know, it did not feel like when we went to Walt Disney World in August of 2020, where you could tell that everything was just kind of like scaled back, crowds included, workforce included. So it's crazy to me that they still don't have, like, they're still severely understaffed, I guess would be a good way of saying it, because they're running basically at full operation.
Yeah. I mean, the next couple stories we're going to talk about is all about staffing issues and stuff at the resort. So I figure I'll just wait and have more of an opinion a little bit later.
Gotcha. Well, there was a union protest outside of Disneyland on August 5th, representing a number of different cast member unions that work at the resort. They protested to call attention to returning to work and fighting for a living wage at the resort. The resort has been understaffed since its reopening at the end of April and has not been able to get all the cast members to return yet.
Yeah, so, one of the things that they've been fighting for is they want to be paid more. It is very expensive to live in Southern California, and so working at the resort. Now, we joke a lot on this podcast that, Disneyland, is basically a money printing machine for the Disney company.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I have to imagine as cast members, it's hard to see how much money the company is making on a daily basis. And then the fact that they are not, getting compensated what they think is a livable wage. It's not even like fair or not fair. It's just, if you work at Disneyland, you can't just on your job at Disneyland also have like an apartment or anything like that. So it's very, very hard. So they did say for this protest that it wasn't like a picket line.
Right.
So guests going to the thing didn't have to feel bad crossing a picket line or thing, because it wasn't like that. They're just trying to get it out there that they want Disney to pay them more, and they want them to hire, like we talked about in the last story, they want to bring back like the overnight cast members that have not been hired back. They're still on furlough. I will say furloughed cast members are still getting medical and benefits and stuff paid for when they're furloughed, so that's a plus side for those cast members. But I'm sure that they'd rather be back earning money and working, so they just need to get back on that. I'm not sure what the problem is there, but hopefully it'll get resolved.
So it's not that Disney isn't rehiring people during this time, because they are, and how do I want to say this? How they are doing it is they're trying to offer previous cast members their roles back. And so Disneyland has offered to hire 85% of cast members who were laid off or furloughed, according to Disney officials. So I think, that's good. But it's just these people, right? The parks have been closed for so long. They've moved on. Perhaps they don't feel comfortable coming back to work in Disneyland with, the current conditions, which, I mean, I don't blame them. I feel really bad for cast members when masks were, and now that they're back, with mask enforcing. I just feel like a lot of guests kind of take it out on these cast members that are just trying to enforce the rules, and that just makes their job that much harder. Plus, they're exposing themselves to so many more people. They're in positions possibly that they weren't in before, and so they're having to cross-train and do things that they weren't doing previous, so they're having to relearn everything. And it's just, I feel like It's a very difficult time and very probably stressful time.
Plus being understaffed.
Yeah, to be a cast member at the Disney Resort. So we're calling on all of you weekly tiers. I know that none of you are rude or terrible to cast members, right? Because we love cast members. We know that there are magic makers. So I challenge everyone the next time that you're at a Disney park to stop and give a heartfelt real thank you to cast members. Let them know how much we appreciate them. Even you could even go out and buy I've seen people make little cards that they hand out to cast members or little gifts that they hand out to cast members. You can't really tip cast members. I think they can get in trouble with that, but some sort of gesture just to let them know, and a genuine thank you, I think would go a really long way for these folks.
Well, and I know it's not any of our listeners, at least I hope it's not any of our listeners, but just don't be a terrible human being to people.
Oh, well, yeah.
And whether they're a cast member or not, because I went to the post office yesterday and was mailing off something, and I was talking to the lady at the counter, and I asked her about their mask thing because they weren't wearing masks, and people in the lobby, for the most part, weren't wearing masks. But they still have a sign up on the door saying, masks recommended. So I said, so what is the policy? Because your sign says recommended, and, I've been vaccinated and everything, but I'm trying to, make it safe for you guys who have to be here and all that, and I'm sure the Disney cast members are all the same. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, you don't have to wear it if you're vaccinated. It's just, it's a recommendation, but we don't have to wear them anymore, that type of thing. So I was like, okay. So I still left my mask on for the rest of the time, but I said, yeah, I'm just trying to be good, and do, because you guys probably yelled at, she goes, ever since they reopened from lockdowns, people have been awful.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened, but please, people, just be nice when you go out. And I'll tell you, if you're nice to people, people will be nice to you. It's really what it comes down to. And, it's that whole karma and things come back to you thing. So just be nice to people, especially people that you rely on to do their job to get you through your day, because they don't get paid enough. Nobody gets paid enough to put up with the amount of stuff, So just, that's all I'm going to say. Off my soapbox now. Another sad situation for cast members is the ticket restrictions that have been in place since reopening, making it nearly impossible to use this valuable perk of the job. Cast members are given 3 different types of passes to use. There's self-admission, which is unlimited but subject to blockout days. The main entrance pass, which allows cast members and up to 3 guests into the parks, which is limited to about 16 days per year, not only 16 days, but 16 visits, I guess, per year. Also has blackouts. And finally, complimentary tickets, which are one-day park hoppers given to cast members 2 to 3 times a year with no blockout dates. Well, the first 2 passes have been blocked out since reopening, and the third is limited by a low amount of reservations available for the ticket type. So they also have to make reservations.
This makes me so sad, because I feel like with the reservations being in place, I would think that it'd be easier for Disney to figure out some sort of reservation type system so that cast members are able to use either their self-admission or their main entrance passes so that they would be able to benefit from this perk. And I know a lot of people, this is a big deal to them. So it breaks my heart, because I feel like this is something pretty easy and pretty simple that Disney could be doing for their amazing cast members. And for some reason, they just haven't figured it out, or maybe I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning is. I was not in on that meeting. So it doesn't make sense to me. Obviously there's some sort of a reason, but I feel like with all the stress that and all the hard work that these people are doing to keep the park open, this is something pretty minimal, but would have a really big impact and mean a lot to the cast members. Yeah.
And honestly, for Disney, it doesn't, I think the cost to allow cast members to come in and do stuff is negligible.
Yeah.
They're probably, they don't get free food or merchandise when they're in the park, so they're probably spending some of their money to do that stuff. I mean, you and I, like I said earlier, we've worked retail. We spend a lot of our money back in the store when we would shop, right? Because we're around it all day. So I assume that'd be the same thing at Disneyland. In fact, we even talked to a cast member, I think, when we were there, that said that you guys see all the good merch before we do, because I'll see a guest walk by and be like, where did you get that? So it's very, very tough. But I hope that especially now when the Magic Key program launches here soon.
I was just thinking that too. If they don't have this open by the time passes are back.
Yeah, it's a real.
Shame.
And we talked about the pay range before. One of the biggest perks is being able to get admission, especially if you can bring like 3 guests with you. I mean, that's really a cool perk. So hopefully this changes and cast members can enjoy the place where they've been making magic for so many of us.
Mm-hmm. The Walt Disney Animation Studios Disney Plus long-term series production is moving out of Burbank. The team will be relocated to Vancouver, Canada, while the feature animation team will remain in Burbank at the studios. The relocation and added space will allow for more projects to be worked on at the same time. The new studio is scheduled to open in January. They are also looking for new members for the team, which can be found in the link in our show notes. So there's an opportunity to be a Canadian cast member. That's pretty exciting.
Right? Yeah, if you're good at computer animation and stuff like that, or any type of artistry that would work with Disney Animation Studios, go check out the link in our show notes, because that'd be a cool opportunity to work for Disney if they're expanding their team. That's really nice.
Well, and like, what an interesting, right? Because when you think of cast members, I think, for me anyways, my thoughts always go to the people that work in the parks. But I mean, Disney's massive. I mean, we've talked to Evan, who does designing type stuff in Walt Disney World, and we've talked to people behind the scenes in finance and all over, all over the place. And it's just, you kind of forget that there's all these other parts and pieces and things that are kind of like quote unquote boring, normal jobs, but it's not boring because it's Disney. I'm sure there's always something crazy happen. Like, it's got to be more exciting than my workplace on days, I'm sure. So I just think it's cool. I think it's really neat.
They also said that part of this is because they are doing more and more long-term animation series for Disney Plus. So that's even more exciting.
That's exciting as well. The thing that was, so when this article this has been in the works for a while, and I've been watching it in the news. And when they first, like, one of the first things when I read about it, they were talking about moving animation out of Burbank, and they just kind of left it at that. It wasn't very specific that it was like, this part of animation is moving out. I'm like, you're going to move? I like had a little like panic attack or like little whatever. I was like, how could they do that? You can't move the animation department out of the animation studio. Like, that studio is so cool and iconic.
Yep.
And I hope one day to be able to tour it. Like, it's just such a neat building. And it's just, yeah.
Well, what do you feel about the fact that they're moving the bulk of Imagineering to Florida?
That makes me sad too, because this news was starting to come out around the same time as that, and I was like, so
why are you moving everything out of California?
Yeah, there's a reason, obviously, but it makes me sad.
Well, speaking of Walt Disney Imagineering, they have been named a Best Workplace for Innovators by Fast Company for 2021. The title goes to companies that successfully foster cultures of innovation and encourage employees to discover, explore, and invent. Some of the standout innovations that Imagineering has created have included the Stuntronics at Avengers Campus, the gesture tracking on Web Slingers, the latest A1000 model of animatronics as seen in Galaxy's Edge, and more.
I mean, come on. Like, just listening to how they describe this, right? Fosters cultures of innovation and encourages employees to discover, explore, and invent. Does that not just scream Imagineer to you?
Right.
We do have to be fair. I think, yes, we're not very happy with Disney right now with how they're treating their park cast members, but from what I can tell with Imagineers, I think it's pretty neat that Disney seems to kind of they just foster creativity. And yes, I'm sure they have pressure put on them. And yes, I'm sure they have deadlines and all that. But really, the fact that they just are given this space to come up with these fun and cool and amazing things is really wonderful. And it's quite magical, because when you see things like Behind the Attraction or
the Imagineering
story, it's really cool to kind of like get a glimpse behind, I don't know, like the steel shed door. Like, we're way behind the curtain when we're looking at these, and to like see the genuine fans and like the passion that these people have for what they do. It's very cool.
Yeah, being able to dream up an idea and then like somehow over time make it a reality is just amazing.
Well, just like the progression of the Stuntronic. That whole big, long, like, it started out as like this little stick thing. And now it's the Amazing Spider-Man, like, flying high and flipping all. Yeah, just it's crazy.
Yeah.
Psst. Avast there. It'd be too late to alter course, mateys. And there be trivia questions lurking in every cove, waiting to be answered. Listen close and keep your ruddy Disney knowledge handy. That be the best way to answer correctly. And mark well me words, mateys. Dead men tell no tales. You come seeking questions and long-lost Disney information, eh? Sure, you come to the proper place, but keep a weather eye open, mates, and hold on tight, with both hands, if you please. There be squalls ahead, and James and Vern waiting for them what don't answer correctly.
Yes, welcome everyone to Trivia Land. I'm excited to be back for the first time since our trip, which was a great time meeting everyone at the Hangout and learning that there's a lot to learn about Disneyland still. So I'm glad we can bring you some joy here in Trivia Land.
Now, are you going to do like Vern? Do you have a bunch of terrible, awful, we're not going to get questions from the parks?
No, I'm actually skipping out on those for this time. So maybe we'll get back to them later. But like Vern, I have been inspired to start a new kind of trend in this one.
Uh-oh.
So we are going to describe cast member outfits, and you're going to try to tell me who's wearing it.
No.
And if you know anything about producer James, fashion and clothing descriptions are not my forte.
I mean, it could be worse. You could be trying to describe actors in a movie, since you are commonly saying the wrong actor in a movie.
It's a skill.
I'm a terrible person. I'm sitting here trying to think of all the different like cast member outfits that I can possibly think of, and the Haunted Mansion, that's all I got. And the Dapper Dan.
Pirates?
Like, kind of, sort of, but like I can't.
Or Tomorrowland, like the Space Mountain?
Kind of.
Or the Railroad? Come on,
Okay,
it's
the Railroad.
Yeah, Railroad.
Okay.
The Plaids? Come
But,
on,
like,
Teresa.
It's like, but there's so many in different lands, and I'm like, I really don't know.
Jungle Cruise outfits?
Okay, that's easy too. But there's other ones, and I'm like, I don't know what those people like.
You know what's
you were
really going to
describe it.
screw
Oh,
us
man.
is Galaxy's
nervous.
Edge outfits, because they can be all types of different outfits.
And even worse, you don't even get a picture. You just get me describing them.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Oh, this is gonna.
So let's get started with our first one and our only one that we're doing this
good.
week.
I'm like, we're doing multiples.
No, I would not be that cruel. We'll pop back to these just like me getting lost in the park. So, these cast members wear a long purple skirt with a white underskirt with a frilly white bottom showing. On top is a white or purple 3/4 length button-up shirt. It's very floofy and has a fancy collar. And on top of that shirt is a red shirt that extends below where the belt would go. It kind of reminds me of Gaston, but it has buttons and other similar details.
I thought I had it, and then that happened. Okay, can you? Oh my gosh, I can like kind of sort of see this.
I feel like
I think this is on Main Street. Because I'm trying to think of how many places women wear dresses.
for some reason Fantasyland is sticking out to me, like the Fiesta area of Fantasyland kind of.
What is the Fiesta?
So
area
they
of
have that
Fantasyland?
stage out there where they do like different things, like the Dia de los Muertos stuff and stuff like that.
Frontierland? Is that where you're going? Frontierland?
Yeah. Well, because it's a 3/4 length, so it's almost like that old type of like small like vest thing.
Yeah.
And then it's got the thing, and it's got the frills at the end.
But purple skirt.
Clarifying, 3/4 length refers to the sleeve, not the size of the shirt.
Oh.
But the shirt length is covered up by that red shirt on top of it anyway. Just
Red
thought
shirt.
I'd play fair.
Purple dress.
So
red
can you give us
shirt.
a hint of like what park it's in?
It's in Disneyland.
Okay.
Is it like an attraction or just like a?
I don't think I'm comfortable giving you
See,
that much.
I think it's on Main Street.
Where? Where do they have purple dresses on Main Street? All I've seen is like blue.
I think the like I don't know, the cashier type people like in the buildings on Main Street.
You could be right.
Maybe not. Because I know that they've got long skirts on Main, like the women wear long skirts on Main Street, and they have like a frilly neck thing. But it could be Frontierland.
How specific do you want us to be?
Very specific.
Oh my god,
geez.
we're never gonna get it. Never.
Oh, I hate you for editing, James, tomorrow.
Pirates?
Just, you know.
See,
Pirates has the
Pirates have like
the
the
maroon
little, like
pants.
pantaloons.
Yeah.
The men and the women
It could
wear.
be something in New Orleans, I guess. It could be one of the shop attendants in New Orleans.
All right, I'm counting you down. You got 10 seconds. Give me your gut instinct.
I'm gonna say a shop attendant on Main Street.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say somewhere in Fantasyland. That's as close as I'm getting. Sorry, James.
Fantasyland.
That
Or
is,
sorry, Frontierland.
Yeah, I was gonna
Frontier.
say.
they're very confusing. I can see how you get those mixed up all the time.
Okay.
Next question from Elise K. What child star dedicated the Sleeping Beauty walkthrough attraction, and can you tell me what year?
Shirley
Shirley
Temple. And didn't it open in like 58?
9. I'm gonna go 9. Do you want to go 8?
I'll go 59 because that's when the movie came out. So that's what because they don't want to spoil. They wouldn't spoil the movie before the movie came out.
No, yeah, unless maybe it was 60. We're 59.
59.
Shirley Temple 59.
Yeah.
All right, question 3 from Matthew J. What is the only Disneyland Railroad station to be removed?
What do you mean removed?
Fantasyland.
Removed. It's no longer in operation.
There was one in Fantasyland that was removed.
Because that's the one Vern was kind of talking to us about. But I almost want to say Frontierland because now it's the New Orleans Square station, not Frontierland station.
Was it the Frontierland?
Yes, because New Orleans Square wasn't there before.
Wasn't Adventureland?
No. It was the
You're gonna say
Frontierland, Frontierland, and Fantasyland. I don't even think there was a Tomorrowland station in the beginning, and then they added that later. So you could be right with Fantasyland, but really it just converted Fantasyland into Mickey's Toontown station. So I could be right also, if you're using those rules, I could be right because it's New Orleans Square station, even though technically it's the same building because they just moved it across the tracks.
I'm sticking with Fantasyland.
I'm gonna say New Orleans Square, and I'm gonna say Frontierland, and I'm gonna be a stickler about this if you pick the Frontier or the Fantasyland one too, because it's basically the same thing.
Is it? All right.
No,
Anyway,
I thought the Fantasyland and Toontown they moved.
Well, they moved
It's
the
not in
New
the same
Orleans Square
location.
one too, because it was on the one side of the track, and they moved it to the other side
No,
of the
no,
track.
no. Like the stop wasn't at the same spot.
Okay. If you're okay, I'll say Fantasyland. But if it ends up being New Orleans Square, I'm taking the point.
Nope.
Or
nope.
Frontierland, I'm
You
taking
don't
the
get
point.
You got to stick with it. You know how many points I need to get backlogged because I talked myself out of an answer?
I mean, you should have all of those. All right.
Okay.
Moving on.
I wrote down Frontierland. Are you changing to Fantasyland?
Yes. Can I just say, as much as I give Vern grief for terrible, hard questions.
don't blame me. These are mostly listener questions.
Thanks, listeners.
I mean, my cast member outfits didn't help. But anyway, final question. What common food item led to the inspiration for the Omnimover system, popularly used in several attractions such as the Haunted Mansion?
Oh my gosh.
And this is from listener Whitney N. Do not blame me for this one.
What popular food item?
Food item. Common food item.
Common.
Hot dog. I feel like a hot dog
A
roller.
hot dog?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that continuously moves. Like, like the hot dog rollers?
Food item? Like it's the food, not the device, right?
Food. Yep.
Yeah, so a hot dog roller is not food. I want to say they probably didn't even have these back then.
Omnimover.
I was gonna say like the potato, like the tortilla chips that are bowls that you could scoop up everything in, but I realized those weren't really a thing back then. A tortilla? No, I'm really on this Mexican thing with Frontierland. And...
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. What common food item led to the inspiration for the Omnimover system, popularly used in several attractions such as the Haunted Mansion?
Did they use the Omnimover in the Haunted Mansion first, or was it in Adventure Through Inner Space first?
Adventure Through Inner Space.
That is irrelevant.
Huh?
That doesn't sound like food.
Yeah. It was,
No, I'm
it was
asking-
Adventures Through Inner Space.
I'm asking
first.
because then it moves the timeline for me, and then I've got to think of things that were common now and then.
I'm going to say, this is going to sound really weird. I'm just thinking about, it continuously moves. So I'm going to think of something like pulling taffy. I have no idea. I'm super curious what this is, though.
Tig, do you have a guess?
I'm thinking.
I'm giving you 10 more seconds.
I'll just say a tortilla shell.
Tortilla shell. Oh, man. I did not expect this week to be such a doozy, but they'll have to wait until after
I don't think we got a single one right. That is my... Oh, no, wait. Maybe we got Shirley Temple. I know that much.
Yeah, but did we get the year right, though?
I don't know.
We'll all find out together after this week's discussion topic.
This week we have a very special guest, a fellow podcaster. His name is Disney Chris. You might be familiar with his podcast network, the Jiminy Cricket Podcast Network, and also his amazing website, DisneyChris.com, that is just packed with all sorts of wonderful, amazing Disney music. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Chris. We're so excited to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. I love to talk about Disney, so I'm excited to have a conversation with you guys.
Well, there will be plenty of Disney talk, that is for sure.
Absolutely. So we'll start like we always do. So tell us your Disney story. What got you interested in Disney or Disneyland? And you can be as detailed or as short as you like, but just kind of give everybody kind of a history of what got you to where you are today.
Okay, well, I am a little older. I'm 47. I will be 48 in a month. And so I grew up in the 70s before VCR. So the only time I got to experience Disney, it was a weekly event on Sunday nights.
Oh.
The Wonderful World of Disney. I'm sure you may have heard of that show.
Yeah.
One of the longest running TV shows ever. But so that was really the only time I got to get my Disney fix. So I think a lot of the fascination, for me at least, was because it was not readily available like it is today. So you sort of got what you could get. I also lived about an hour and a half away from Disneyland by car, and we would go about once a year growing up. And so I was just absolutely fascinated with Disneyland. In fact, I used to have temper tantrums when we had to leave. I remember it was a problem. But so then I had tons of records, because that was another way you could have Disney at home was record albums. You couldn't see the movies except when they were reissued in the theaters every few years. So it seemed a lot more special and rare to experience those classic films back then. But so that was sort of where the seed was planted, having grown up so close to Disneyland and just sort of being fascinated with the TV output. And I was just sort of the right age for all that. And it just sort of never left me. It just sort of, most people grow out of it, but with me, it just got more and more like, instead of when you find out the magician's secrets, you sort of become disenchanted. When I found out the secrets behind how Disneyland operates, I became more fascinated by the place. So the other thing is there wasn't internet back then, so it was difficult to come across good, solid information about the history of Disneyland. So, like, whenever I would find a good book about Disneyland, it was read cover to cover and highlighted, and pictures were cut out of it, and it became sort of a Bible to me because it was just such a rare thing. And so, also, I was sort of interested in drawing, and I started drawing Disney characters and buildings from Disneyland and things at a young age. And so that's sort of how it started, and I just never grew out of it.
It sounds like your history sounds a little bit like my history. So producer James, and I'm sure Teresa as well, will gladly tell you that I just turned 40, so we're not that far off in age from each other.
You look younger.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I did kind of the similar thing. I went and I really liked it. Of course, this was I guess maybe the very earliest years of the internet, I wasn't really doing too much, but yeah, with you were drawing the buildings, I was like creating 3D versions to make like a little mini Disneyland at home with Hot Wheels and stuff, and it drove my mom crazy. So I understand the fascination of you left and that something was ignited, and then of course we're both older now, but we still love it. Teresa's not quite as old as we are, but she also still has it within her. So, and we have plenty of people that listen to the podcast that are older than us, and they're still really into it, and that's great. People worry too much about age limits. Like, you shouldn't be into Disney past a certain age or whatever. Like, who cares? Walt Disney made, especially Disneyland, he made it for everybody.
Yes, I feel like though. It used to feel more that way, and more they're starting to gear it towards younger people. I'll give you an example, and I don't necessarily mean children either. I mean like the pre-Generation X crowd, the millennials, and So when I went to Florida a few years ago to see the castle fireworks, I sat and waited. Not a single property represented in the fireworks show was something that I had any sort of sentimentality for.
Sure.
Everything was like from the late 80s up to the present. And I was already an adult by then, and I didn't grow up. I still know those films and enjoy them, but I mean, what happened to Pinocchio and Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland, the films I grew up with? So I feel like Disney is sort of losing its appeal to older people because they're trying to target the audience that spends more money, maybe, which is the millennials. I don't know. That's just how I felt about it. I was disappointed in the Castle fireworks show.
Yeah. It is interesting because they do seem to be kind of picking some sort of IP, whether it's Frozen seems to be like the
Frozen's everywhere.
And Pirates and Frozen seem to kind of be everywhere all of a sudden. Well, not really all of a sudden. It's been like that for a little while now. But it seemed, I don't know, it felt it used to feel more balanced. So it was a good balance of the classics and the current stuff.
Exactly. I don't mind the new being included, and I appreciate that. But I just feel like, throw me a bone. Give me something to appreciate as well. Yeah.
Well, we don't want the younger generations to not know who like Peter Pan or Alice is or whatever.
They don't even know those films.
Yep. So it like I fear for Mr. Toad a little bit because I love Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in Disneyland, and I know that a lot of people are very upset that it was taken out of Disney World. But I do get nervous about it because I'm like, how many younger people?
They're gonna have to pull that retraction from my cold dead hands.
Well,
the thing is, though, even when I was a kid, people had no idea who Mr. Toad was. That's
true.
Always been the case because it was never one of the big films.
It is a fun film, though.
It is.
I like the attraction. You don't even have to.
I love the attraction and the movie it's based on, but why does everything have to be like based on something that's a movie or why can't it just be Mr. Toad and you not know what it's from?
That's
Does
true.
It matter?
Like Pirates, like Haunted,
right?
Like Big Thunder. Yeah.
They need to get back to making just some good park stuff and doesn't have to tie into something all the time.
Right.
I guess it's a safe bet, right? It seems like that's what their whole thing is we know that the audience likes this, so let's make something based off of that.
It's okay to do that for part of it, but I mean, there should be a balance.
Yes, I agree. I very much agree. Well, speaking of Disneyland, when you enter Disneyland on your first day of a visit, which way do you like to go? Do you like to head left towards Adventureland, go straight through to the castle to Fantasyland, or maybe hang a right and go over to Tomorrowland first?
Usually when I'm asked that question, it's asked differently. It's, do you go through the right tunnel or the left tunnel? And I usually go through the left tunnel. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But the side with City Hall and the Emporium is usually 90% of the time the side I enter on. And it always has been. And I can't tell you why. But I also seem to sort of gravitate towards Adventureland first.
Good man.
Because I kind of like feel like there's a certain order to the park. Like it's supposed to be done in a certain way. And like Adventureland, then New Orleans Square, then Frontierland, then Bear Country, then Fantasyland, then Toontown, then Tomorrowland. In that order. That's sort of my thinking of how you're supposed to navigate the park. Of course, when you're trying to avoid lines and that sort of thing, you jump around. But if I was just leisurely touring the park and not concerned about long lines, then that's how I would do it.
I'm kind of with you, though. I think I never, I guess, consciously thought of it that way, but I think that's why I always go to the left, because I feel like that is the way you should experience the park, because there's a lot of great attractions on the west side of the park. And so going that way, I don't know, there's just something about it that just seems like it makes sense to do that and then, head around. I don't know.
I'll even go so far as to, when I'm done doing Adventureland, I'll leave through the Adventureland entrance.
Oh.
Go back to the hub. Mm-hmm. And then when I go into Frontierland, I'll enter from the main entrance from the hub, because I feel like that's a better way to enter Frontierland.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely is. Much more, it's themed much better, and it's a more...
It gives you the experience of entering the land. Yeah.
Otherwise, kind of, if you do it, just by walking along the rivers of America, it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute. We've transitioned, I see.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Right. I never actually thought about that.
It's not as abrupt, but it's almost too subtle that you don't notice that anything
well
happened.
I get it's reminiscent to me of like going through somebody's front door as opposed going through like the garage door.
Sure.
It's like the front door is there, obviously there's the sign, and it kind of unfurls like a movie, right? Like you're watching, that's how Disney did all of this stuff, right? Like the tunnels and everything was supposed to be like a red carpet being unveiled before you.
Yes.
So I could see how going in through Frontierland with the sign kind of is like, this is the front door. Sure, you can get to it from Rivers of America, but that's like coming in your garage door. It's not exactly the same entrance or the same grandeur you would get coming in the main door.
I like this, Chris. I think next time we go to the parks, I'm going to have to try this strategy. I like this a lot.
In 1955, when the park first opened, each land was a dead end. You had to go back to the hub to get to each land.
Sure,
You couldn't get from one land to the other unless you went back to the hub anyway. So that was the original idea. Disney World is a little better when it comes to the flow, and it sort of transitions from one land to the next, sort of, because little by little the details change. It's less abrupt, and it sort of feels more like a smooth flow. Whereas in Disneyland, just because of how it was built, and it sort of just was more of a generic thing and not all pre-planned, sometimes you get a little bit of a abrupt shock in theming from one thing to the next. Not terrible, but I mean, there's some examples, like the tree house next to Pirates of the Caribbean is sort of a strange juxtaposition, but yeah.
That's true. That's true.
That's true. Yeah, because in Disney World, so I give Disney World a little bit of grief because Disneyland fans seem very adamant about keeping sight lines, and you shouldn't see anything outside the park and all this stuff. They're very... Well, Disney World, I remember being a little taken back because I was standing in Frontierland and I could look through to the hub and look beyond, and there was the Contemporary all lit up, and I'm like... Disneyland fans would be losing their minds right now because they get mad when they were building Galaxy's Edge and there was a little bit of ability to see Mickey and friends parking through the trees. They were like, oh my goodness, you could see the parking ramp for it. Oh my gosh.
They purposely wanted you to be able to see the Contemporary from inside Tomorrowland because it was considered to be a part of Tomorrowland.
Well, that makes sense.
But I mean... when you're in Frontierland and you can still see it, that's kind of a problem. It is sort of weird how they're a little more loosey-goosey with the berm in Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, big time.
Kind of see outside the berm more than in Disneyland.
Because I was surprised in Disney World because I rode the train, and after you pass they don't have a Tomorrowland station. I think they just have the Fantasy Fair station. But as you keep going, there's like you come around and you from the train can see the bus stops and everything because there's nothing on that side of the track.
You go underneath an overpass with cars driving over you when you're in the back of the the train is a disappointment to me in Florida. It just wasn't as well done as in California. I am first and foremost a Disneyland person, but I do appreciate Disney World and things about it. But as far as my favorite, it has to be Disneyland.
So speaking of favorites, what's your favorite attraction? So even though we're a Disneyland podcast, this can be any attraction from any Disney park.
Well, my favorite attraction is a Disneyland attraction, and that would be It's a Small World. And I get a lot of grief for that, and it sort of is an ongoing problem for me personally that so many people criticize that attraction. In fact, I have a group on Facebook called Disney Music Fans, and in the rules of the group, I state, do not say anything negative about It's a Small World in this group. Because I just hate it. I hate how in The Lion King they make fun of it. I hate how in the Jungle Cruise they tell jokes about it.
Yeah.
It always just bothers me because to me it's a message of world peace and love thy neighbor, and I feel like making fun of it is not really. It's making light of actually how deep of a message it is if you think about it.
Sure.
And I love the artwork of Mary Blair.
Yes.
And Raleigh Crump, and I just feel like out of every attraction in Disneyland, that one feels the most Disney to me. There's others that I feel are very Disney, but that one feels the most Disney to me. And it's kind of funny because I absolutely love the outdoor portion in California the best, but once you're inside, I prefer the Florida version.
Isn't that you too, Teresa?
I like that the water is
the flooded rooms.
Yes. I like that the water is all over the place in Florida versus like being
the canals.
In the sliders.
It's more like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, I like that a lot better.
I'm with you though. I think the exterior of the one in Florida is not nearly as majestic.
Yeah.
I do really like the one at Disneyland, but I don't know. There's something. I don't know what it is. There's something about the fact that you're in the trough of water, the flume of water, whatever it is, in Disneyland. That there's something about that just because it was like the original, and like I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just something about it that I
still really love the original, but I just prefer.
Yeah,
Disney World has a slight edge for me.
Yeah,
it is interesting because you're right. I think I can't think of any other attraction that gets as much is given as hard of a time as Small World.
Yeah, it bothers me. Actually.
Yeah, because
it's a pet peeve.
I don't know if you're around me, it's Autopia.
Yeah, sure, people, but you don't have other. You don't get off the Jungle Cruise and they say take a stab at Autopia.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean? You don't get off of Radiator Springs Racers and they say something about Autopia kind of thing. So the thing that's cool to me, I agree with you. I think It's a Small World is an underappreciated attraction. And I was one of those people that I think didn't fully appreciate it. But now that I know the history of it and now that I understand the design and why the design is what it is instead of
how quickly they pulled it together.
Yeah, how quickly they did it. And, just everything that went into that is just incredible to me when you really sit there and think of it. And I get goosebumps now when I go on it because like you said, it's been there. This thing traveled across the country and came back, and here I am sitting in it now. It's just, and the details of the costumes. There's a lot about It's a Small World that people just don't really realize.
Yeah,
and take for granted.
It's probably the most ridiculed Disney attraction.
Yeah.
But it's beloved because it's everywhere. Like a lot of Disney parks have it. Mm-hmm. It's a very simple attraction. I mean, Disney must really like it because it's probably not very expensive to build one.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like all of those little things making all the dolls do all their little dances.
I suppose.
There's a lot of mechanics
There's
going
only
on.
one Magic Kingdom style park that doesn't have an It's a Small World, which is Shanghai. Every other park has one. Now, what's interesting about the one in Tokyo Disneyland is the queue is actually indoors, but they still have the same facade. Looks like the Disneyland facade.
Okay.
But you go inside and the line is in that building instead of being in front of it. So they kind of came up with a solution, whereas they didn't come up with that for the Disney World version. In fact, they originally didn't even have the clock inside that looks like the Disneyland. They added that later. Yeah, that was added about maybe 20 years ago, maybe even less. Originally, it was just like these green and orange. It's hard to explain. It looks sort of like buildings like cut out, like cardboard cut out, and then they put like lights around them. And it was just very plain and weird, and they added that clock much later because so many people were disappointed.
I was gonna say, I can't imagine the clock not being part of it. It's a Small World attraction.
Yeah, it wasn't there till fairly recent.
Interesting.
So Tag is like the master when people talk about things on the show that we're not super familiar with. He's the master of course, looking it up. So we're looking at pictures now of the Tokyo Disneyland It's a Small World.
Yeah.
And holy cow, I need to see this.
The queue is really neat.
Well, and
it's all in the style of Mary Blair, and they've got animated things all going on all around you.
Yeah.
Murals and everything.
You know, and I really like Disneyland Small World, how we went back to the white and gold.
Yes.
I didn't like our colorful facade, but it looks like Tokyo Disneyland does have the colorful facade. They have the
color still. In fact, that was why they did it in California.
I feel like they pull it off better than the California version, though. It's much more vibrant looking and more like fun.
The reason they did it is because it's often gray in Tokyo.
Oh, sure. So make it pop a little more.
Yeah, but in California, it's rare to have a gray day. Right. Almost every day is sunny. So the white looks better in those weather conditions. So
and the gold, I just love the gold leaf.
They experimented with it in the 90s. They also got rid of the original soundtrack and put in the then called Euro, now Disneyland Paris soundtrack for several years, and I hated it. I was so happy when they brought back the original soundtrack. It wasn't the same without it.
Interesting. I didn't even know that, which segues into our main part of our conversation, which I think is going to be really interesting. So people, we're included, but a lot of listeners love sounds from the Disney parks because, it's almost like smell or taste. Like there's things that can just really bring you there. And of course, sounds is very popular for that. So on DisneyChris.com, I would say like the by far the biggest part of the website is the fact that you have this amazing audio collection from Disneyland. So can you talk about how you got started? Like, where did you come up with this idea to do this, and how long have you been doing this? And just kind of talk to us a little bit, I guess, an overview for people who may not be familiar.
Okay, well, I started collecting Disney audio, not necessarily theme park, but just Disney music as a child. My father is an engineer, and he was always sort of into recording equipment and stuff. So I would make little mixtapes of my records and do, using analog equipment, use his stereo system to make, things. And I collected more and more music, but it was all store bought, records and things. And one thing that was really hard to come by was music from the parks. It was rare to find something commercially available. And what you did find was always like a very abridged version of the haunted, the Grim Grinning Ghost, just one chorus or whatever. So I always wanted to sort of, through my, experimenting, making mixtapes and things growing up, I always wanted to do sort of a Disneyland collection. And as time went by, more and more materials became available, and eventually I got myself a CD burner, probably in my mid-20s, and I started making CD collections for my friends and family and sending them out as Christmas gifts. But, I mean, my friends and my family were not Disney fans, so they didn't really appreciate it.
What's wrong with them?
I wanted to share with everybody, but they appreciated the work and the craftsmanship, but they really weren't into it. So I wanted to find a way to share my love for these things. So time went by, and the internet came along, and I started to realize that I'm not the only one that has a passion for this, and a lot of other people collect Disney audio. In fact, a lot of other people collect Disney theme park audio, oftentimes audio that's not commercially available, that's been preserved by former cast members walking out with tapes, or but these are things that were put in that were tossed. They're things Disney does not keep an archive of audio like this. I mean, not for the parks, at least. They're not very good about keeping it for the earlier movie. Like, they just didn't realize the value of it. They thought it took up space. They're still not good at preserving audio from the parks. So a lot of people who are passionate about it would sneak it away and hide it and save it. So a lot of that material, when the internet came up, started to circulate, and there were websites where you could download all of the stuff that wasn't commercially available anywhere. That's where I got a lot of my materials from. So then Disney started to release more things, and people started to get clever and bring professional recording equipment into the parks and making live recordings that sounded like professional recordings. And there's lots of ways that people have collected the audio. Now, I don't do any of that. I just find it and tweak it and make it into something, clean it, and try to preserve it somehow. But so I found some websites where people would share their audio, and so I started to share my audio collections that I had been sending to my family on these websites for Disney fans, and they were collections that you could download. And then eventually I moved to the next level, which I started posting audio on YouTube. Well, that didn't... I was kind of creating a whole channel over there for Disney audio, but I got taken down rather abruptly with, just everything I had, all the work I'd put into it got taken down. So I decided I needed to find another outlet. So I tried to start a radio station where I could play the music live and people could tune in. Well, that turned out to be like my computer kept crashing. And
oh, no.
It was just such a pain. And so eventually I discovered these sort of websites that are very user-friendly, where they let people who know nothing about web design sort of create a website. So that's how I first started. And I put up about 400 songs of Disneyland audio on that site. And eventually the site was limited in what it could do. So eventually I had to sort of learn how to make a website from scratch, which I did. So now my website is not one of those homemade, user friendly. It's a real website that I've designed. The collection has blossomed to over 2,500 tracks today.
So you started from 400 to 20. Wow, that's
I think that was 2013 when I first started the website.
Wow.
Yeah, same domain. I just switched my host.
Sure,
but I kept the same web address, and so it's grown and grown, and now it has. There's other things on the site, but as far as the Disneyland, I call it the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour, and there's 27 chapters, pages, and each page has, some have less, some have more, but an average of 100 on each. It's still growing. There's a lot of things that are marked coming soon. I have hundreds and hundreds of things to add still that I work on. I don't just come as you are with my audio. I create new things. I clean the audio. I mix things. I make ride throughs. I know some of the editing tricks and how to clean tracks. And I'm also very meticulous about cleaning everything, taking out any distortions and things. And so each chapter is sort of it's either a land or a part of a land, or in some cases it's like I have a chapter for Christmas and I have a chapter for the other holidays, and then I have a chapter for anniversaries, and then I have a chapter for TV materials.
We're looking through the chapters right now, and it's just wow. There's just anything and everything you could possibly imagine, or things you didn't even know existed. And
different versions of things, which is really great because, things like one that I particularly like is the tracks that you have for like the monorail spiels. And of course the monorails had a bunch of different spiels over the ages. So you have a bunch of different versions of those.
Yeah, I have the Mark. I don't have the Mark 1 or the Mark 2 because I don't even think they had a recorded narrator for those.
Sure, yeah.
But the Mark 3, which went online in 1968, I have a narration for the Mark 3, the Mark 5. There's no Mark 4 because that was the Disney World. So it skipped to the Mark 5. And then the Mark 7, because 6, I think, was Disney World as well. So I have narrations for all those different versions. And then I have like different versions of the Mark Twain narration going back to the 60s. And for the train, I have 70s, 80s, 90s, present.
Wow.
Some of the reasons why I don't have things before the 60s is because a lot of the attractions didn't have recorded narration until the 60s. A lot of it was live. Like, I believe the train was narrated live, just like the Jungle Cruise, up until the 60s, when they added the Primeval World, I think, is when they put in the recorded narration.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah. And then I like to include live performers and shows and parades. Like, I have a chapter called Disneyland Bandstand that's all different people who have performed at Disneyland live. And I don't always have the music they recorded, that they played at Disneyland, but I'll find a recording of them, like a studio recording, and include it to represent, this band performed at Disneyland. And I have a lot of stuff on that chapter. Dang. So it's not, I do have each land, like I have an Adventureland chapter. Right now I'm actually working on my New Orleans Square chapter. And, but But then there's also those extra chapters that sort of, like one of them's called Disneyland Showtime, and it's all the live shows. And one of them's called I Love a Parade, and it's all the parades. So some of them are not lands, but they have a theme. Each chapter has a specific purpose.
Well, some of that audio is really hard to come by, because I remember a few years ago, I was trying to find one of the soundtracks for one of the parades, and it was, I think I'm with you, that it was really frustrating that, like, Disney, I guess, didn't see that there was a market for this or what, because the only couple things official Disney that I've got from the park that had what I wanted was they had a Fantasmic CD that had Fantasmic and the Electrical Parade on it.
Yeah, I had that. Yeah.
And then they had, for the 50th anniversary, I bought the big 5-disc thing, which had quite a bit of stuff on there, too, because that had, like, the full Haunted Mansion and stuff, which I had never seen before. Then, I'm sure you remember this, in the late 90s, early 2000s, they had that CD on demand stuff, so you could go and pick music tracks, and I thought that was amazing, because so much music you couldn't get except for on these on demand tracks.
So what that was, it was called Disneyland Forever.
That's what it was.
And there were 2 locations in the park that had this. One of them was on Main Street in the music store next to the Magic Shop. That used to be the tobacco store. And the other one was at the exit to what was then Rocket Rods, which is now the little alien space command store. But they had them in there too. And what you would do is it looked like a console, and you would go up to the screen. It was a touch screen, and you could survey the park land by land. Each land had, several songs to choose from, and you could make your own personalized CD. You could pick 10 songs, and I think it was $20 for 10 songs. That's a lot now. Back then, it was even more.
Yeah.
But I wished I could have bought all of it.
Right.
But I only ended up getting, I think, 4 CDs, because it's all I could afford at the time.
Yeah.
Do you remember, so on the internet in the early days, probably when you were trading around and stuff in the very beginning, there was a set, it must have been around 2005, so maybe it was a little bit later, but there was somebody online who was making amazing, it might have even been you, actually, but it was really amazing, because they did a set of music called 50 Years of Imagineering or something, and he had these amazing mixes of attraction soundtracks, and I don't know what happened to this person, or if they're still around and I just haven't found them for a while, but there was some great stuff that came out of there, because I think I got one of the Indiana Jones tracks, I think, from him, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, there's been people over the years that wasn't me, but okay. I did put out a collection a few years after that of my own, which is similar, but yeah, I am familiar with that collection. I have it, and I loved it as well, and at the time, that was sort of the best there was out there, but now so much more materials have come up. But he made that collection free to download on one of the websites that I would go to. And there were other people that would post similar type collections. That's where I got a lot of my stuff at that time. But so people... It was like trading cards. People would share, and it was sort of like a hunting acquisition type game. And there really is a community out there, people who really love to collect this audio. And there's I'm not the only website out there. There's other websites. A lot of them take my stuff and put it up without asking and not giving me credit. So I'm not going to name names because of that. But because it sort of annoys me. I mean, I don't mind if they share stuff because it's not my materials, or But I wish if I put the work into editing it, that they would credit me for it. But anyway, you can find nowadays. I don't know what happened. I don't know why they took me down, but you can find tons of stuff on YouTube. The person that made that collection, he's still around, and he has a YouTube channel. There was a guy named Dave O'Neill who did a collection called Extinct Attractions, and you could buy CD collections from him. And so, yeah, this stuff has been circulating for a long time now, and more stuff comes up all of the time.
We hope you're enjoying this interview with Chris from DisneyChris.com. We spoke with him for quite a long time, so we will have to continue on the rest of the interview on next week's episode. So thank you all for listening to this interview, and we'll continue with our post-show. So we did get a piece of feedback email from Stephen S., and this came in a little while ago, but we were obviously gone. We had pre-recorded a bunch of stuff, but we were talking about the Premier Pass for Disneyland and talking about paying for Fast Pass and stuff like that. So he had quite an extensive little thing that I'm going to quickly read through here and talk about some of his math, I guess. So, hi, Tag, Teresa, Vernon, James. After reading about the Premier Pass in Disneyland Paris, which also just actually went out and was deployed this last week, and recently paying for our tickets for our next trip in October, I think I see the path Disney is taking with the passes and how it could possibly make sense. My family and I, total 3 tickets, all adult price, will be in Disneyland for 5 days and Universal Studios for 3 days in October. The total cost of our Disneyland tickets with Park Hopper is $1,245. The total cost for our tickets for Universal is $2,388, a difference of $1,143.
And less days.
Yeah, so why am I paying over $1,000 more for Universal for 2 fewer days? The Universal Fast Track system. Universal charges between $80 to $90 for their Fast Pass systems, depending on the day. That system gets you 1 express entrance pass per ride per day. At checkout, they offer you unlimited rides for an additional $30, bringing the total add-on cost to $110 to $120 per ticket. Considering we're going to Universal on a Friday through Saturday, I felt that mitigating the crowd somewhat would be worth it. We also focused on great hotel deals and other savings during our trip in order to avoid paying for what our main focus is, the rides. There are 10 rides at Universal that use the Fast Track system. Using the lowest unlimited pass cost above, that's $11 per ride. If I were able to choose which rides we really wanted, I would only be paying for 4 rides, saving me a good chunk of change. If I were to apply the Universal cost structure for Fast Passes to our Disney tickets, we would go from $1,245 to $2,970, $115 per tickets per day. Ouch. I also see this as an advantage for families with small children. If they are unable or unwilling to ride certain rides, you wouldn't be stuck with paying for something you're not using. Let's face it,
true.
If Disney came out with a flat rate, it would be pretty close to Universal, pricing most families completely out. Also, on days where the park isn't packed, people can pass on purchasing a Fast Pass because it won't be necessary for most. I like the potential for flexibility. I see where Disney is potentially going. They're going to need to PR the heck out of this program if they implement it stateside. Keep up the good work. Love the show, Steven. I thought this was a lot of interesting math and perspective on this.
It makes it seem less crazy to me, if that makes any sense. I'm still not sure if I'm like all in or like, yeah, do it tomorrow, Disney. Like, I'm not that way at all. But it seems he made it make more sense and seem a little less outrageous. Depending on how you want to do the park, this could be a benefit for some. But if you're a casual park goer, or if you go frequently and you don't need to get to the front of the lines and like really maximize your day, then I like what he's saying. I like the option. And if you're going to compare what Disney is potentially doing versus what Universal is currently doing, I do like the pick and choose what rides you want versus it's this flat rate for all of the rides. I do like that.
So what's interesting with his feedback email was it reminded me of my first job that I had. We worked at a movie theater, and we had a competing movie theater in a town, like one town away from us. And what happened was they raised their prices, so we raised our prices. Mm-hmm. And the argument was, well, we have a better experience at our theater, so why should we charge less for that? Yeah. So if they're going to raise their price, we're going to raise our price. So I think sometimes Disney and people at large, and like Steven was saying, they look at Universal and they look at Disneyland, and some would say, I'm not saying everybody, some would say that Disney is the better value or whatever of the two, right? That it's the more quality product. At least Disney, I'm sure, certainly thinks that way. Although Universal is catching up, in my opinion. But so why should Universal be able to get that much amount of extra money and Disney shouldn't? And Disney's basically leaving that money on the table. So I think it's very interesting, and I don't know what they're going to do. The only thing I want from all of this, and we kind of talked about it earlier in the news, is I want less planning for the day for me.
Yeah.
Like, I want more flexibility for me during the day instead of, like, booking everything and doing passes. If they could get the front-of-the-line pass kind of thing, if they want to charge extra for it, fine. But I don't want it to be like the old Fast Pass system was, because I want to be able to just hop in lines this week. School's back in session in a lot of places in Southern California, so the crowds have been really light. Mm-hmm. So on a day like that, I'd much rather just go and stand in standby lines instead of paying. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, when we were there, it would have been nice at some times to, especially with the heat, to have some way to kind of skip that line, especially if there was no shade.
Oh, you didn't want to sit and enjoy the queue?
Not the queue for Radiator Springs Racers that we sat in and baked through, or the one that you baked through with Space Mountain, because there's not much elaborate queue there. It's not the same as the argument for like Indy or something like that. So, yes, sometimes, Teresa, for your answer. But
Kate, I hope you heard that.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. I think the one thing that would be, and there's no way that we'll ever know, but with Universal bumping up this price, right? Do they have as much with people buying merchandise and spending money in restaurants and shops and whatever? Do they have, like, what's that income look like for them? When I go to Universal, I get a butterbeer. That's really the only thing on my list. And if I'm hungry, I'll eat something. But there's nothing at Universal like there's at Disneyland that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in Disneyland, I need to have this. I don't have anything like that at Universal, aside from butterbeer, which is a drink. So I really, the few times I've been in Universal, I don't spend very much money when I'm in the park. And I think part of that for me is because their ticket prices just to get in is much higher. So I don't really feel like I want to continue giving them money, because I've already given them quite a bit of money just to get in the door. So it'd be interesting if they're trying to recoup costs with their ticket prices, because maybe they're not getting in very much money on those other aspects. Whereas I think Disneyland does pretty well with food.
Yeah, well, I feel like merchandise between the two, like, I would like to buy more stuff at Universal, to be honest, because the few times I've been there, like, they have some good merchandise offerings. Problem is that just like their park tickets, I feel like they're a little pricier for things. Yeah. Like, for instance, I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan, but a lot of their Jurassic Park merchandise is very expensive. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, but especially the Harry Potter stuff is outrageously priced. So it's hard. To me, Universal and Disney are like apples and oranges. I don't consider them the same thing. So it's hard to, like, in my mind, compare them. I have never bought the, like, front of the line pass at Universal, because I look at the price and I go, I'll just wait in line. It's fine.
Yeah.
And like Steven said, they only have so many attractions that have that anyway, so.
Well, and you're getting it for all of the attractions. Maybe you're just interested in the Harry Potter themed areas or the Jurassic Park themed areas, and you don't really care about the other stuff. So if you're going to try and compare the two, I guess like I said, I would prefer to pay per which ones you would like and not just have to pay this blanket fee. But really, in reality, I'd rather not have to pay for fast passes at all.
So why don't they I have a great idea. Why don't we just combine all the different things? Why don't we lower the entrance cost for the park and bring back ticket books? A digital ticket book.
So you've said that already, and that's definitely not going to happen.
It'd be awesome. You put it on your phone, and at every attraction there's a little scanner, and you scan, and at the end of the day, it deducts that amount from your account or whatever. So if I want to go on Indiana Jones like 13 times,
dangerous.
But think about it, they'd make good money. Anyway. Let us know what you guys' thoughts are on this whole thing. Send us an email, feedback@dlweekly.net. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Which reminds me, we also have another way to contact us. You can go to dlweekly.net/contact, and there's a nice little form on there. So if you don't have an email, if you don't want to open your email program and email us, you can contact us through the contact form on the website.
Looks like we're coming in for a landing, gang. But please stay listening until trivia comes to a stop. And then you can walk to the nearest exit. Thanks for listening to the 8th wonder of the world, DL Weekly.
So our first question was asking about a cast member outfit I described. They wear a long purple skirt with a white underskirt that has a frilly bottom. On top is a white or purple 3/4 length button-up shirt with a very floofy and fancy collar. Top of that is a red shirt that extends below where a belt would go. Kind of reminds me of Gaston, but with buttons and some other details.
Rancho del Zacalo.
That's what I was kind of saying. Why are you...
As soon as you're saying it now, I'm like, wait a minute.
I said
think this is
Frontierland.
You're still wrong. It's the Bibbidi Boppity Boutique.
Oh,
Wow.
we never even go in there.
You should have kept with your Fantasyland, your Frontierland, Fantasyland.
I was like, dang, Tag's on the right track.
You know who should have known that one?
Changed into Fantasyland.
You know who should have known that one? Kate or Deanne, who are listening in the chat, because Kate has taken her daughter there, and Deanne, I think, has looked there too. Well, how come you don't remember? Are you looking up a picture now?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
remember.
there are a lot of pictures to go through, but this was definitely the most consistent one I saw.
See? Deanne even said, dang it, I've been in there. See? I'm telling you. Maybe it's just your description.
It's probably my description.
Well,
Let's be
I mean-
honest.
I'm going to Google this now real quick. See, when you said purple, I was thinking like a royal purple. Well, I guess that one looks royal purplish. Now, is this at Disneyland or is this at Disney World, James? Because maybe they have different costumes.
It's very possible. There were a lot of variations throughout there, so I picked
Well,
the
because
most
I was
common one.
looking... Yeah, so the Disneyland one is the second picture. This is a Disneyland podcast, Producer James.
Oh, come on. Do I need to write another one?
So, Kate, was that what it looked like to you?
Yeah, this is 2018. Look at how cute.
Should have known popular Google would have been...
Has it got magical
It's
things?
got magic. How does my photo have magic? What happened? That was weird.
How did
Well, it
my...
was so cute because like the mirror came to life and like
How did my...
I agree, Deanne. I think the Walt Disney World one is better.
Yeah, I
it
agree,
is still
too.
a purple skirt.
Let's move on to our other disappointing answers.
Okay. Question number 2. Which child star dedicated Sleeping Beauty walkthrough attraction in what year? From Elise K. It was indeed Shirley Temple, and you're close enough. It was 1957.
Ooh.
So I'll let the point slide.
What year did Sleeping Beauty come out?
This is a Disneyland podcast, not a Disney movie podcast.
Goodness gracious.
Sleeping Beauty came out in 1959.
Okay, so why would he have the movie? Okay, whatever.
I mean, it's based on an existing story,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Whatever.
let me have my disappointment.
That's fine. Do I need to take your point from you for that, too?
Wait a minute. 59.
No.
So we got that right. The fact that that's the year the movie came out.
You were correct with
Yeah.
that?
Do you know why I remember
impressive.
that? Because Sleeping Beauty Castle. By the way, I've got to tell you about this. That's relevant. But first, Sleeping Beauty Castle, they were saying was Sleeping Beauty's castle 4 years before the movie came out.
Oh yeah.
However, I watched. I got distracted yesterday, and I watched Disneyland Through the Seasons.
You got distracted.
Yeah,
Never,
I watched
never,
Disneyland
never.
Through the Seasons on Disney Plus, and they called it the Fairy Tale Castle in the beginning.
I've never even. What did you watch? I've never even heard of this.
Disneyland Through the Seasons. It's on Disney Plus. It's a
I'm gonna
Walt
have
Disney
to-
thing.
I'm gonna have to look at that.
Yeah, they called it the Fairy Tale Castle, and I was like, what? Yeah, so they have Disneyland around the seasons, and they had this little segment where they talked. They're like, and now coming down from the Fairy Tale Castle. I was like, what?
A what?
All right, James, continue.
All right. Our third question from Matthew J. What is the only Disneyland Railroad station to be removed? And it was indeed the Fantasyland station. The Fantasyland station was removed in 1966 for the construction of It's a Small World because it used to be over closer to the Matterhorn and the Midget Autopia, not where the Videopolis station, now known as Toontown Station, is located at. So, Tag, you may be correct that something hopped across the railroad tracks. I'm not sure about that one, but
That's okay.
that station is still there. I'm
I'm just-
giving you the point begrudgingly.
No, well, I said Fantasyland,
Begrudgingly.
so you're begrudgingly giving me the point.
Yes. All right, and our last
Because
question.
you went on a soapbox.
Our last question this week, a real tricky one from Whitney N. What common food item led to the inspiration for the Omnimover system, popularly used by attractions such as the Haunted Mansion? Should have thought with a little bit more magic. It's either a faux or a candied apple. We have conflicting stories, but I was looking for an apple.
Oh, interesting. I was thinking of like system as in like how it moves.
Yes, you were thinking of how to move it, but in reality, the inspiration was getting a 360-degree view. As the story goes, one day Bob Gurr was sitting in John Hench's office. John happened to have said apple on his desk. He picked it up either by the faux apple stem or the candied apple stick. I'm not sure which one it is. And he began to spin it completely around. Struck by the image, he remarked to John that they need to develop a continuous chain ride car that could rotate 360 degrees like the apple.
Oh, that's cool.
And the People Mover became a starting point, and eventually the Omni Mover became a real deal.
That's super cool.
It's amazing where inspiration will strike from.
Yes, and perhaps you have some inspiration now after listening to these great trivia questions. We love asking your questions, as you can hear here. So send us an email. Producer Vern and I will check it and hopefully ask it on the show. Our email is trivia@dlweekly.net.
Well, we will be back next week with more Disneyland news and information.
So until then, go out and enjoy the parks.
Please remain seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop and the doors have opened. Then collect your belongings, watch your head, and step carefully from the episode. On behalf of all of our crew, thanks for traveling with us. And we hope you have a happy and memorable visit here at DL Weekly.